All right, it says we're live. We're going to get started. We're going to be talking about both the Herods. There's actually three of them in the Bible. We're going to start with Herod the Great, then it's going to be Herod the Tetrarch, and then Herod Agrippa. First, Herod the Great tries to kill Jesus. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem, and in all the coasts thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet, saying, In Ramah was there a voice heard, lamentations and weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and would not be comforted, because they are not. In Jesus' birth, there are so many prophecies fulfilled, 400 or so, give or take either side. There are great joys in his birth and great despair in his birth. The wise men came to Herod asking, Where is he that is born that is called King of the Jews? Herod asked the wise men to send for him when they found the child, that he might come and worship. The wise men said, It's supposed to be in Bethlehem. Herod sent them on their way, saying, When you find this child, come and get me. God the Father told them in a dream, Do not return to Herod, and they went a different route. Very familiar account. We go over it most of every Christmas. Most of you are already aware of the wickedness of Herod the Great. Now in Matthew, it is stated that he killed all the children in Bethlehem under the age of 2. Not just the male children, like the Pharaoh in Egypt. No. Herod killed Jewish children. He's a Jew. He's not Roman emperor. He's a Jew, king in Israel. And he killed the Jewish children, all of them under the age of 2, that were in the coast of Bethlehem. Bethlehem, out and around, everywhere. An act of total depravity. And then you ask yourself, why? What could he have achieved? He felt mocked by the wise men. They never came back to get him, to tell him where the child is. He felt threatened in his position. Herod the Great had killed family members who he suspected might try to wrest power from him. How much more would he be willing to kill those that are beneath him? Those that might someday take power from him. He killed family members on suspicion that they might be thinking about it. And then he has no compunction, killing babies, children, 2 years and under. All of them, male and female. Even though the wise men say, Where is he? It's fascinating. Herod was not a good guy. Herod the Great, a builder, an expander of his kingdom. He was a cruel man. He was an insecure man. And when he died, it was, and I quote, after an excruciatingly painful, putrefying illness of uncertain cause. That's from Wikipedia. He never realized his goal of killing the King of the Jews, as just a year or so after the massacre of the children in Bethlehem, Herod died. A most excruciatingly painful, putrefying illness caused his death. Just a year after the massacre of the children at Bethlehem. All right, that's Herod the Great. Now, his son, Herod, called the Tetrarch, for Herod the Great divided his kingdom among into four parts and gave parts to his son and a part to his sister. Three sons and a sister. He gave them his kingdom that he divided up. And in Matthew 14:1, at that time Herod the Tetrarch heard of the fame of Jesus, and said unto his servants, This is John the Baptist. He is risen from the dead, and therefore mighty works do show forth themselves in him. For Herod had laid hold on John and bound him, and put him in prison for Herodias, his brother Philip's wife. John said unto him, It is not lawful for thee to have her. And when he would have put him to death, he feared the multitude, because they counted him as a prophet. But when Herod's birthday was kept, the daughter of Herodias danced before them and pleased Herod. Whereupon he promised with an oath to give her whatsoever she would ask. And she, being before instructed of her mother, said, Give me here John Baptist's head in a charger. And the king was sorry. Nevertheless, for the oath's sake, and those which sat with him at meat, he commanded it be given her. He sent and beheaded John in the prison. His head was brought in a charger and given to the damsel. She brought it to her mother. And his disciples, John's disciples, came, took up the body, buried it, and went and told Jesus. His father, Herod the Great, tried to kill the king of the Jews. He himself killed the messenger of the Messiah. Quite an ignominious family, don't you think? So he has John the Baptist imprisoned. And he would go and he would talk to John. And he held John in great respect. But John the Baptist, he's standing up and telling Herod the truth, what a lot of people wouldn't do. He kills John the Baptist, whom he holds in high regard because of a dance by a young lady, his stepdaughter. It is something that in an emotional outburst, he really liked the dance of the young lady. I'll leave it to you. And in that emotional outburst, it cost him dearly. No matter how much he may not want to kill John, he made an oath because of the dance of the young lady. And so he must keep this oath that was brought on due to his lusts. John is in prison. And do you know why? Because John stood up before Herod and said, It is unlawful for you to have your brother's wife. So Herod the Tetrarch, his brother Philip, who's about 10 years older, 5 years older than Herod, 10 years older than his wife. So Philip and Herodias are married. Herod the Tetrarch is married. And so Herod goes to Rome and sees Herodias, Philip's wife, who is 10 years younger than Philip. So Herod, who is 5 years older than Herodias and 5 years younger than Philip, they fall in love. So Herodias divorces Philip, and Herod divorces his wife, and they get married. Now, according to Jewish law, Herod could not take his brother's wife while his brother is alive. Okay? If the brother was to die and did not have an heir, they were to take the wife in and take the wife as their own. Philip was still alive. This was an unlawful marriage by Jewish law. And John the Baptist stood up and told Herod and anybody who would listen, including Herodias, that they are in sin. What they're doing is wrong. So Herod, of course, can't have someone telling him that, so he puts him in jail. John the Baptist was killed because of Herod's sin. It's fascinating. All of this is very, very fascinating. And then when he hears the fame of Jesus and the miracles he's doing, he thinks that John has been raised from the dead, is going to come back and haunt him. But he did not stop his sin, did he? No. He didn't want to hear about he didn't want to hear about his sin. He liked John. He didn't like the fact that John called him out. Most of us are that way. Now we have a Herod that killed babies trying to kill Jesus. We have a Herod that killed John the Baptist and feared that Jesus was John raised from the dead. Then we get to a warning from the Pharisees where they're throwing Herod's name around to scare Jesus. Luke 13:31. Remember, Herod killed John the Baptist. So the Pharisees are thinking that by throwing Herod's name around, it's going to scare Jesus. Luke 13:31. And now they're in Galilee here. So when I'm saying they're in Galilee here, Herod is in Jerusalem. The same day there came certain of the Pharisees saying unto him, Get thee out, depart hence, for Herod will kill thee. And he said unto them, Go ye, tell that fox, Behold, I cast out devils, and I do cures today and tomorrow, and the third day I shall be perfected. Nevertheless, I must walk today and tomorrow and the day following, for it cannot be that a prophet perish out of Jerusalem. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, which killeth the prophets, and stonest them that are sent unto thee. How often would I have gathered thy children together, as a hen doth gather her brood under her wings, and you would not. Behold, your house is left unto you desolate. Verily I say unto you, you shall not see me until the time come when ye shall say, Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. Now what's so interesting here is that for a year or two, Herod really wanted to meet Jesus. But the Pharisees, they're using Herod's name with John's death, as a way to try to get Jesus to shut up. It's very interesting. Herod didn't care about Galilee. He didn't. So what is so interesting is that Herod had a year or two had tried to get an audience with Jesus. And then, at the trial of Jesus, Herod finally gets his opportunity. But it doesn't quite turn out the way you would like it to. Luke 23:8. And when Herod saw Jesus, he was exceeding glad, for he was desirous to see him of a long season, meaning for a while, because he had heard many things of him, and he hoped to have seen some miracle done by him. Then he questioned him in many words, but he answered him nothing. The chief priests and scribes stood and vehemently accused him. And Herod, with his men of war, set him at naught, mocked him, and arrayed him in a gorgeous robe, and sent him again to Pilate. So Herod was very pleased to see Jesus. But Jesus wasn't there to be pleasant. Jesus wasn't there to fellowship. Jesus was there to get to the cross. Herod saw Jesus and was glad. He had John in prison, and he would go and talk to him because he liked John. He didn't like their message. The father and son duo of Herod the Great and Herod the Tetrarch, they were a pair. Herod the Great was informed the king of the Jews, the Messiah, was born, and all he worried about was his earthly power. Then his son kills John the Baptist because he was in sin. And he didn't like being called out for that sin, as most people don't. And that marriage, by the way, that marriage, the Herodias Herod marriage, is eventually what caused Herod's downfall. He got what he wanted, Herodias, but it cost him everything after a couple years. So Herod, they both heard of the king, of the Messiah, yet they never once sought out the Messiah. They thought that they were the king, they were the important ones, and they were wrong. One heard of the king of the Jews that was born. He didn't seek him out as a king of the Jews. He didn't seek him out to worship him. He sought him out to kill him. The other Herod heard of Jesus and thought it was John the Baptist and sought him out, but as entertainment, not as the Messiah. Herod and Herod II, Tetrarch, were lust-filled. They both had sin-filled lives. They thought this world, they thought their power was all there was. Now, what is even more fascinating is that the nephew of the Tetrarch, Herod Agrippa, is the one that had Peter and James, the son of Zebedee, killed. Had Peter and James, the son of Zebedee, killed. So many who saw the Messiah, they heard of him, but they never tried to see him as their Messiah. One sought to kill him because of a threat to his power, and the other thought to have an audience that he might be entertained. The message in here of us today. There is throughout history this same pattern. So many know of Jesus. So many wish to meet him. But not because he is the Messiah. Not because he is God incarnate. Not because of his salvation freely offered. No. They want to meet him as an equal. Someone whom they have heard of, that they want to know, because then they think they can name drop. That they can then talk about having met Jesus without ever knowing him. We have a lot of that in America today. To the Herods, he is a rival, an oddity. To the other Herod, he is a showman. Not the mighty God, not the everlasting Father. To them, he's another person that they can say that they know. We got a lot of that going on in America. People who don't want to know him for who he is. They just want the free food, the healings. They don't want the doctrine. They don't want the heaven and hell stuff. They don't want the serve me stuff. They just want the free stuff. They don't want to meet him as his status demands. He's here. We're here. They don't want to meet him as his status demands. No, they want to meet him as equal. They want to meet him as friend. They don't want to meet him as his servant. They don't want to meet him as a bondservant or as a disciple. And they definitely don't think they're unworthy. The Herods had the king of the Jews, the Messiah, long prophesied. And remember, they're Jewish. They're not Roman. They're Jewish. They knew Jewish law. They knew Jewish prophecy. They didn't care because they had power here on earth. Herod the Tetrarch killed John, then heard of Jesus. He didn't stop his sin-filled life. He stopped the one accusing him of sin. Jesus says, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets. If you heard the part where he said, I must go to Jerusalem because all the prophets are killed in Jerusalem. That's true. Check the Jewish history. John died for calling out sin. The Herods met the Messiah. Well, one Herod met the Messiah. The other heard that he was here. And they both tried to affect his death. The Messiah was born and right in front of them. And all they cared about was their power on this earth. A lesson in there for us today. A big lesson. He is God. We're not his equal. He is God. We're not his friends. Too often we forget he is God. And we put him right here on our level rather than trying to see him on his level. I think it's an eye-opening action that would really change a lot of people on the face of this earth today. Christian, it's up to us to tell them. It's up to us to show them.